Happy Wednesday. So the question I was asked for today is, what are some of the unexpected ways I changed after moving abroad? If you're not familiar with me, my name is Halana Black. I left the US in 2018. I am an American, and I've lived in 10 countries since then. I started off in Thailand, lived in a few different countries in Southeast Asia, moved to East Africa, I lived in Europe for a bit, and now I live in Mexico. So it's been about 8 years that I have been overseas. And for the most part, I haven't returned to the US to live. I did go back to the States for 30 days at the tail end of the pandemic, just to be able to see family, check on everybody, make sure everybody was well, and to do some shopping. I needed to do some shopping to be able to buy some stuff to bring back to my apartment in Rwanda, and I'm so glad that I did. But I wanted to share with you ways in which I changed over the last 8 years and really wasn't looking for it, really wasn't expecting it. What I was expecting, I will tell you very quickly, I was expecting just to be able to relax and to be able to, I guess, decompress from my life in the United States, but I didn't really have a vision for what it is that I was going to do with my life. Like I think for a lot of us, we see ourselves living lives where I knew it was going to be less heavy than what I had in the US. But how I would change as a human being, I wasn't really sure. What else? There was something I was going to say. Lord, this perimenopause brain. I said, when I originally left the States in 2018, in my head, I was only leaving for about 3 months. I told myself I was going to go to Thailand. We're going to check it out, see how, we like it. If we don't, we can go back to the States, we can get a job, we can go someplace else, we'll figure something out. I didn't really think that I would be a person who would just pack up and just sort of bounce around from country to country over 8 years. And in some countries, I stayed longer than others, like in Vietnam and Thailand. Both of those countries, I stayed a little less than a year. Cambodia, I stayed for about 3 months. Rwanda, I stayed for 3 years. And, here in Mexico, I've been here, I think about 2 years, maybe a little more than 2 years. I was in Turkey for 3 months. So I didn't leave thinking that I was going to have a certain type of an experience, but I will share with you what has happened for me over the years. And maybe you can start to think about some of those things of moving abroad, or maybe if you're new to living abroad, is something that you would like to be able to think about or like to do, or would like to find more information about it. So the first one is that I learned that my whole nervous system downshifts. Moving abroad really forces you out of hypervigilance and not, just a permanent state of high cortisol hustle culture of the US. You stop treating your body like a machine and you start living in a slower sensory rhythm. And I learned that rest isn't something that you earn, but it's really just a baseline, like complete total baseline requirement in order for you to be a creative person. like I'm such a more creative thinker than what I used to be, and it's because I'm not, constantly on edge. I'll tell you, when I moved to Thailand, I had gone through a 6 month uh, transformational process where um, I just wanted to feel better in my body. But one of the things that I was troubling my body was fibroids. And so, you have a whole bunch of issues with fibroids, like heavy bleeding, and your stomach is enlarged. And for me, my stomach was kind of misshapen. And I didn't really realize how much stress I had accumulated over the years. I had been in and out of hospitals, and I learned that being in and out of those hospitals, you pick up a lot of energy, a lot of it, energetic excess that does not belong to you. And because of that, I hold a lot of stress. And even now, I hold a lot of stress. Excuse me, you hold a lot of stress in your neck and your shoulders. And I was completely unaware of it. And so I was always walking around, you know, like this until someone, a shaman, was able to help me to remove a lot of that energy. Shamans and massage therapists, and just learning how to be able to guard my own energy, learning how to eventually remove the energy on my own, to do things like, energetic grounding, learning how to relax, learning what I needed to be able to get better sleep. All of those things mattered. And so over time, I've been able to gain tools that I use, to be able to energetically block people, and to be able to create energetic boundaries so that, you know, people can be energy vultures. They see you on a pathway to going someplace, and they want some of that because they haven't been able to develop that themselves yet. And so they want to steal some of yours for whatever reason. And if they weren't doing it to you, they'd be doing it to somebody else. Um, but I learned how to be able to get rid of these people, to keep them out of my mind. Like, nobody's running in my head rent free anymore. It's like, I love that. I love that statement. There might be other projects and things that I have going on that are running rent free in my head, but it's not people. I'm not stressed by any people, and I've learned to cut folks off quick, without any sort of an explanation. And I'm the type of person who offers people chances to be able to demonstrate who they are. But if it gets to like, if it's between, being seen as nice, and being seen as somebody who just wants to keep the peace, um, and sacrificing my nervous system, my nervous system is going to win every time. So it's too much. And really, because so I left the States when I was 41, and I'm 49 years of age now. And what I notice is that I'm so glad that I learned these tools in my 40s and had time and space to be able to practice it, because looking at going into 50, I can see where your body just goes into a state of just like, if you haven't done the work to take care of it, it will shut down on you. Things will start to break down. your physical body will start to break down, and certainly your nervous system will go into overload. And if you do not know how to be able to get your body back to some sort of a baseline sense of peace, people will run all over you. And really, you don't have anybody to blame but yourself for it. And so that's really important. If you want to be a creative person, and I think that everybody is a creative person, whether you, like, I'm a writer for a living, but whether you write, you paint, or if you do, project management, it's all creative work. Everybody is, if you're a plumber, you're a creative person. If you raise children, you make creative decisions every day. So that, I think I said enough about that. Your nervous system downshifts, and there's this a softening that has occurred that I did not expect. And let me say this as the last point. I can see the difference in pictures in myself, of what I looked like before I left the U.S. I've lost 100 pounds during this entire process, right? And so it's not just the weight that I have lost, but I can see the difference, like in my skin. My skin is brighter. My eyes are clearer. Um, and even in stages, because I started the process in the very beginning when I was 41. And people think that you just lose weight and that's just kind of it, like your transformation is done, and it's not. And I'm not done transforming even now. And so this has really just been a process for me of learning how it is that I have changed and have been able to practice these tools over time. And so I can see in the pictures. So even after I lost the initial weight, like when I was in Thailand, I lost about 60 pounds while I was there. And so even I can see I lost physical weight, but there's still remnants of things, in my skin that needed to be gotten rid of. My eyes weren't always as clear. Um, you can see in certain spaces, there's still some inflammation in places, even after you've lost the weight. So people think that you lose the weight and then that's it. If you lose a bunch of weight, like you've hit some sort of a higher level of life. And the truth is, there's always levels to your healing. You can lose the outside weight, but if you don't change, if you don't work on loving who you are on the inside, you're more than likely going to gain the weight back. I know that for sure. You'll gain the weight back, or you'll just the weight will come back as other addictions to other things. Um, but I'll move on to number two. I just need to add that little bit in there. Number two, your definition of wealth expands. My definition of wealth has expanded over the last 8 years. I realized that true wealth isn't just about accumulation of stuff. Um, it's about being able to live a more sovereign life. And by sovereign, I don't necessarily mean like, you find folks on the internet talking about being sovereign, and they, want to separate themselves from the government, and you don't have a social security number and all that other stuff. And that could be one way to be able to look at it if that's what you want to do. But I'm talking about having sovereignty over your time, the type of environment you want to choose, how it is that you expend your energy, and living across 10 countries says redefined luxury from high status consumption of stuff to being able to do things, at least for me, to do things like long lunches, to be able to delve into to find other hobbies like creating art. I love to paint and to draw outside of writing, which is something I never had any space to do because I was always so traumatized from life that you wind up looping through the same trauma every day and creating the same experiences every day, and you can't get past it. You just can't get past it. You don't have enough energy. There's not enough energy in the world to be able to move past these things because they keep recycling in your body over and over again. And at least for me, I think that that's where a lot of the weight comes from. Yes, it's from the shit food that I was eating also, but you keep eating the shit food because you keep replaying these traumatic experiences over and over again in your body, and you cannot move past it. That's why you'll do a diet, for a week, a month, 3 months, 6 months, and you might lose some weight. But the second somebody pisses you off, the second you have some sort of a setback, you don't know what to do. And then you go back to who you were before because the person that you were on the inside never changed. It never changed. So my definition of wealth has radically expanded. And while I'm still looking, not that I'm looking for, I'm prepared. I am creating the in the environment where wealth has no choice but to stay. It's like it's being invited. I hope that makes sense. I get to create the circumstances where wealth gets invited and it wants to stay. I'm not chasing a bag. That's not something, that's not really an expression I ever really cared for. Um, I'm not chasing after money. Chasing is exhausting. I am creating the environment that will allow wealth in the door and will stay and it will grow. We're gonna have dinner every night. We're gonna keep each other warm. And then we're gonna grow. We grow together. I hope that that makes sense. And then I'm not sounding crazy to folks. Um, but yeah, my definition of wealth um, has expanded. And to be quite honest, I have done more rich things than a lot of people that I do know who actually have the money to be able to live a rich life in the United States. And because they're so busy, they're doing things. Um, they spend their whole life making cash to be able to pay the bills and whomever else it is that they are responsible for within their family. That they never have any time to rest. So, for example, I've been to Dubai twice. I don't like it enough to stay. Like I probably I've spent a little less than a month in Dubai. It's a great city, but I don't. It's not a place that I would want to stay. It's sort of like a stale. Like to me, it's kind of like Las Vegas. I don't love Las Vegas. I do love some of the national parks that are around Las Vegas. That I can get with, but Las Vegas itself can kick rocks. I'm sorry. Um, and Dubai is nice. It's a great place to go to shop. Like if you need a break, if you want to touch a glamour, it's awesome. Dubai is awesome. But once that's done, I'm ready to go home. Um, as a matter of fact, I have, I'll keep that to myself. I was about to share a wealth dream, but I think I'll keep that one to myself. Um, but what was I talking about? Yeah, so you can. I've been to Dubai twice, and people are always telling me, oh, the big trip is to go to Dubai and to be able to do all of these, rich things and to be able to hang out with people on the yacht. Like I've been on the yacht. I've, been to, top level hotels where they have um what are those? The infinity pools where it looks like the pool is going over the edge of the building. And it's spectacular. I haven't stayed at the Four Seasons, but I've sure as hell been to lunch there for at least plenty of times. like go there buffet breakfast. It's awesome. I didn't pay to stay. Let me say that. I didn't need to pay to stay because the places that I stayed were, you know, were you can get some really nice places without having to pay Four Seasons prices. However, I did go there for a buffet breakfast a few times, or for lunch, or whatever the hell it is that they were having. Go and hang out at the pool all day and use it as a place, um, as a like a place to co-work, take business phone calls and everything on the phone, yapping with a client, um, or I should say, I had my headphones on. I didn't really have a physical phone. But I've done all of those rich things, and I've been able to do it without having millions and millions in the bank. So when people are like, they have the millions and millions in the bank, but they still don't have the time to be able to enjoy any of those things that they want to have. It shifts your idea of what wealth really is. I don't really need to have a yacht. Some people do, and that's fine. Yeah, I think that you should have what it is that you want. I don't really aspire to have a yacht, but I do enjoy being on one every once in a blue moon. Like it's cool. If you go someplace that has really beautiful views and mountains and um, the water is a beautiful color, and yeah, you can sign me up. But I don't need to own one, nor or live on a boat either. Like I don't think I love the water that much. Like the idea of getting on a boat and just being out to sea for days at a time, unless it's like a cruise ship, because I've never done a cruise ship. Um, you know, I would like to be able to do one day. I have some friends of mine who live in Mexico also, who did a kind of like around the world trip, and they did that for 3 months. They were on a cruise ship, and they spent a lot of time going around the perimeter of the continent of Africa. I would love to do that because I would love to be able to see as many countries as I can, before I die, right? Before I die, before I'm too old to be able to get up and enjoy it. But I know that travel in Africa, across Africa, can be a pain in the ass. We're just going to call it what it is. But they had an absolutely enjoyable time on this cruise ship. You get on the cruise ship, you go from one country to the next. I think they saw about 15, 16 countries, I believe. I hope I'm not overstating. Um, you get to go out, you get to see stuff, met great people, had some great food, and then they headed at the end of the day, they headed it right back onto the boat. we get right back on the boat, and we gonna cruise it out to the next country. I'm not gonna be sitting around, um, trying to run through African airports, arguing with folk over visas, because a lot of people who work in like customs in a lot of African countries, they live to be able to make your trip an absolute living hell. and that could be good or bad. I don't know. And of course, the treatment that they get coming to America, I get it. I totally get it. But I don't really feel like going through all of that. So if I can get my behind on a cruise and float around some water and, I can get the best experience of what African countries have to offer, I would rather do that. I would rather do that. That's so much better than having to sit on a visa line or having to go to, hotels that are supposed that, should be high end, but the staff ain't high end. I just can't do it. I don't have time. I don't have time for this. So, I would love to be able to do that because I do want to be able to experience as much as of Africa as I can. I'm about hit my limit as far as because Africa can be so challenging in its at least in its travel. Once you get into the country and you settle into your place and you can go and you can have a good time. But just that I don't feel like being bothered with that process of going through one country to another, of doing land travel, of taking buses. Like I ain't got time for y'all like that. I just don't. And so because I have this goal of being able to see as many countries as I can before I die, there's 195 countries in the world. Um, if I can do it with ease on a cruise ship and see the good, 15 countries, y'all can sign me up. That's what I'm gonna be doing. So that to me is wealth, being able to do that as well. And from what I understand, like the people that I met, that they're not insanely wealthy at all. They saved their money and they were able to go and be able to enjoy themselves for 3 months. And so that's what I'm gonna do. That's what I'm gonna do because I do want to see as many African countries as I possibly can. So yeah, my point is on this one is that your definition of wealth radically expands. How um, your idea of what it is that you need your money for changes. And because I've had a taste of a lot of these different so-called luxury experiences, I get to learn what it is that I actually like and what is really just stuff for show. Like the stuff that people do with the shopping and they need bags and certain type of shoe label. Um, I don't care about that stuff. I don't I like handmade stuff. I like artisan stuff. I like stuff that's made with natural materials. And it can be expensive, but not necessarily um, high-end luxury brand expensive. That's me though. You may love the bag. If you love the bag, then damn it, you go for the bag. But that's not personally me. I don't do wigs and eyelashes. It's not my personal thing. But if that's you, you go for it. I like a good lip color. If I'm going out, I'll put on some, I'll put on some eyeliner and some mascara, a good blush, and I'm done. I keep my skin nice, so I don't necessarily need to have like a foundation on. I'm sure there'll be a time when my skin, as I get older, it won't be as smooth as what it is today. Then I'll consider putting on some foundation. But today, I don't feel like I need it. I don't feel like I need it. Um, but but luxury for me right now feels like space. To have space, to live in a place that feels spacious, to have time, to be able to have time for me to be creative. Wealth feels like being able to go out and buying food that I want to be able to buy, whether I am, buying food to be able to put in my home. I always want to be able to have the best food available. And a lot of times in other countries, the best food that's available is the food that's available for everybody anyway. Like it's not labeled organic. It's just not. Like I can eat meat overseas because it's less likely to have all the extra crap that they put in it, the stuff in America. So don't necessarily have to always buy the organic brand of everything um, when you're in other countries. I can go out and get, a filter for my water. Like that's luxury to me, to be healthy, to be able to do well enough to be able to make choices that are healthy, that things to be able to have access to uh, food and water that feeds my body, and just have like that's just my normal routine. I don't have to explain it. It's just what it is, and I don't have to think about how much it costs. How much it's going to cost me. Like really, my greatest vision, and that's what I'm moving towards when I move to the next town that I'm moving to, is that I don't I like there was a time when I was like, oh yeah, I could live on a farm, and girl, I ain't living on a farm. However, I would love to be able to live in a small town or a small city um, where I have access to the farm, or the store that I go to gets shipments from the farm, and I can buy my meat. The few times that I buy cheese in a year, all the vegetables and the fruit. That's what I want. I want to be able to know who that farm is and what it is that they sell, and how it is that they are able to process their animals. Like that, like that's to me, that's wealth. That is wealth to me. Because if like to me, if your food isn't right, if your body isn't healthy, then everything else is just gonna go to hell. It just is. It doesn't matter that you can afford to buy the bag. Where are you going if your body is bloated and you don't feel like going anywhere? Doesn't matter. So that was the last segment. Your definition of wealth radically changes. I'm spending a lot of time on this. How many? I don't know how many minutes I've been talking so far. So number 3, how I changed and didn't expect it when I moved overseas, um, is that your identity sheds its old conditioning. Your identity sheds its old conditioning. So when you move away from the gaze of the expectations of your family, um, your past, the narratives of your past selves. For example, like your childhood, what you used to look like in your childhood. People used to make fun of me because I had big thighs, and people were always saying that I was fat and you gained too much weight. Um, until eventually, yeah, I did. I was so I had listened so hard at what people were telling me that I was too big, and then I look at some of my pictures, particularly in my early teens, and I'm like, I wasn't even fat at all. Like I was actually quite thin here. Like what? Like I don't know how in the hell you all convinced me that I was fat. But as I got older, of course, I started to gain weight. Like the things that people had said and the things that I had believed about myself had started to become true. And that was really because I had a very low sense of self-esteem. Or people hold you to your former career titles, or whomever it is that they believed that you were at a time, especially if it served them more than it served you. Um, moving away to another country helps you to get away from those narratives. And you start to ask yourself the question, who am I when nobody from my past is watching me? That child, come on, that is excellent. Who am I when nobody from my past is watching? And when you start answering that question for yourself, you start to experience a profound reclamation of personal power and self love. I cannot tell you how much I love myself so much. Like I love who I am and I love what I'm into and I love how what I'm into feeds me and it makes me smile. Like I'm not even looking for anybody's approval anymore. I don't need you to say, oh, this is a good thing, daughter. Or, I'm not looking for friends to sit around and say, oh, this is cool, but don't do this. Or, sometimes people um, think that because I'm into a thing for my health that I expect that that thing will work for everybody else. I really just want other people to be able to go out and find the thing that works for you and then go do it. But because of the type of a world that we live in, the message that a lot of people get is that if your health regimen doesn't look like A, then B has to be wrong. Like the person has to be wrong. And it doesn't. Especially because I know that what you need in different parts of your life changes. Like, and depending on where you live changes. Like, for example, when I lived in Rwanda, for the most part, I stuck very strong to a vegetarian, I would even say a vegan diet. And in some cases, I had a raw vegan diet for certain chunks of time. And it wasn't because I, believed in raw veganism, even though I do think that it's important. I at one point in my life, I studied raw veganism, became a certified raw vegan chef. Um, had studied it, practiced it, and did all sorts of things. But when I arrived in Rwanda, one of the first things I bought, this was in the early days of the pandemic. I moved there and I was like, man, I needed something that was delicious. And after being in Asia, I was like, I haven't had things like oxtail or something like that. And so I wanted like some like an African plate of meat, right? I wanted something that was good with some spices that I could recognize. And so I found a place that served, it was a farm, where they processed their own animals. Um, and everything appeared to be on the up and up as far as cleanliness and their practices with killing the animals and things like that. So I ordered from them. I got a kilo of, maybe even more than a kilo of oxtail. I cooked it. Oh my God, it was so freaking delicious. I mean, that pot of food was awesome. And then, of course, during it was the pandemic, something happens. The place that I was ordering the meat from, they said that they couldn't get into contact with them anymore, and that was over. And so the other places that I was trying to go and get meat from, like either restaurants or if I was preparing the food myself, it was always making me sick. It was always making me sick. And so in Rwanda, it really wasn't about, me trying to stick to being a vegan or a vegetarian. It was because I just couldn't, like, I couldn't eat nothing. Couldn't eat nothing. So I had nothing to do but to be excited about what I could get access to. Now in Rwanda, I was lucky to be able to have some of the best fruits and vegetables that I've ever had anywhere, anywhere in all the countries that I had been to. And so I loved that so much. So I just got into what I had access to. it wasn't a universal um, it wasn't a universal statement on what it is that everybody in the world should be doing. Because every time I moved to a new place, I was eating something different. Even people have said, well, I did, the 6 months of the program where I had lost the initial 60 pounds in Thailand, but I didn't continue that way. It was quite restricted. And so when I left that program, the people who had put me on the program to be able to help me to lose the weight and to be able to get mental clarity and things like that. They were like, you're free now. You can literally go off and you can do what you want. That your life is to be able to discover what works for you, what it is that you like. And sometimes you're going to slip and fall, but look at that as information instead of um, slapping your head and saying, well, you're not sticking to the strictness of a particular diet. You have to go out to discover for yourself what works and what doesn't, and during what times it's time for you to be strict, and when you can go and discover other things. And so, for me, what I decided was that I really love culture and I love being able to travel, and it sucks to be able to go someplace and not to be able to engage in um, certain foods, or to engage with certain foods or certain meals with people, or simply because you decided that you wanted to be a vegetarian. Now, if you are a vegetarian and it's working for you, continue. This is not. I'm not telling you what to do or what not to do. But for me, I like to be able to try new things. And then when I go home to my own kitchen, which is what I eat an overwhelming majority of the time, I actually don't eat a lot at all. Um, I like to be able to recreate or take from one culture, one country, one way of living, and sort of mix it with whatever it is that I have available at the time. Like here in Mexico, I'll be honest with you, I don't necessarily love the food that I have here. And I think it's a matter of where I am in the country. I live in the Yucatan, in Playa del Carmen. Um, but the food that, I'm not in love with the Mexican food that I get here. However, the food, the spices, I'm able to make, for a lot of things from other places. So I can make African dishes. Like I've been on this Ethiopian kick. I've been making my Ethiopian greens. I wish I had collard greens, but I don't. So I have to use kale. So my Ethiopian collard greens, I've made shiro. Of course, I can make I forget the Amharic word for the lentil dishes, but lentils are a big thing here. Very easily can be found. Chickpeas and chickpea flour. Um, I haven't I haven't been able to find teff so that I could make injera. Um, but I'm going to see if I can like order it from someplace online and have it delivered so that I can make that and make make a full Ethiopian meal, because I love Ethiopian food. I absolutely freaking love Ethiopian food. And with the spices that I have here, I can make a lot of the spice concoctions that they have. Just the spice concoctions from Ethiopia can be rather um, complicated. Like better, it's called better, better spice, better spice. Yeah, better spice. I think that has like 15 different spices in it, depending on the recipe that you're using. The butter, I think it's called kibe. I think I want to call it kibe. I'm sorry if it's the wrong thing. I think it's called kibe butter. But that has another 10, 12 spices in it. But those are things that can be found here in Mexico. So I'm able to mix all of those things up. I'm able to mix all of those things up, able to create something new here. And so, is it authentic Ethiopian? No, but it'll be close enough until I can actually get to an authentic Ethiopian restaurant. Same thing with Indian food. I can make Indian food here. I make Caribbean food. Uh, you know what I haven't done is make cornbread. I have been able to make polenta, which to me is the same exact thing as grits. You know, one of the things that has gets on my nerves is that for a lot of Black people from the States, we use poor quality versions of food because we're used to it. Um, for example, grits. We use, the white grits that have been stripped of its color and they added more shit to it. And they're like, well, if the grits don't taste like this, then I don't want it. You have all this access to all of this good yellow corn polenta out here. And the only difference between polenta and grits is really just a shift in the mill that the corn goes to. So grits are, grits in the way that they're supposed to be are a tiny bit finer than polenta, but that's it. That's it. So give me the polenta. That's what I want. I want the polenta, and there's nothing in there but freaking corn, and it's yellow. Not supposed to be bleached white with all this extra shit in it. Um, that was extra. I don't even know why I even added that in there. But I was saying that your identity sheds its old conditioning, so you get to be whoever it is that you want. And as I said before, in number one, um, when your nervous system starts to relax, it leaves room, it leaves space for you to become the person who you've always been. Really, it's not even like you're inventing something new. You're uncovering the person that was always there. You get to learn who you are. And you get to do it in peace without people standing over you. You didn't do that before. Why you ain't, or do you think you better than, the tomfoolery that folks will put you through. Um, when you're trying to be in a sort of a space where you want to change, or they make you feel bad for wanting to be more or to do more than what it is that you used to do. And you don't have to feel that way. You just move overseas where they can't find you. they can't they can't access you. And even now that I live in Mexico, people feel like I am so far away. It's people feel like that you are so far away that I'm still available. Like, you can still call me. I still have the same Google phone number that doesn't cost them any. It's a U.S. phone, so it doesn't cost them anything to be able to call me. But folks don't. Nobody bothers to do a Google search on, what time it is, so that I didn't know what time it was. You can go on Google and figure out what time it is in the country that I'm in, and it's not like I'm moving to a new country every other week. Ciao. A simple Google search would do just fine. But people will feel like if you are living within the vicinity that they are living in, that they have more access to you, and because they have more access to you, they get to have they get to have to be able to make a statement about who you are and who you are becoming. When you remove yourself from that, it's like you moved into a different space. It doesn't matter if you live on the complete opposite end of the world, or you just living in Mexico. Mexico is still very much connected to the United States as far as land travel is concerned. I see here all the way down here at the bottom of Mexico. I've seen people from Atlanta and Texas, New Jersey plates. They drove their cars here, so it ain't that damn far. It ain't that damn far. Um, so that yeah, so that's your identity sheds its old conditioning. Um, Number four, you become comfortable with being a beginner again. This is important, particularly as you get older. When you get older, we have this idea that we're supposed to be able to know it all. And the truth is we don't. We get used, we know what it is that we've been conditioned to do in the States. We know, perhaps, you went to school and you learned a thing and you did, a number of years in your career. Um, but being able to become a beginner again is a complete mind shift and it's really exciting. It's exciting to be able to learn new things. So I love being able to navigate new languages. Now, admittedly, I've been in Mexico for 2 years, and my Spanish is trash. I'm gonna just call it what it is. Spanish is trash. However, and I think that's more so because um, I haven't taken the time to be able to take a class the way that I would like to. I'm not one of those, go outside and go to the corner store and just pick up conversational Spanish, just talking to regular people. I'm just not one of those people. I don't even do that in English. So I don't, that's not going to happen for me in Spanish. However, what I do love to do is because I love food and culture so much. I love taking trips to the grocery store and reading the labels on the fresh fruits and vegetables. Um, to be able to go to like the canned goods or maybe not the canned goods, but the spice section. And I go to the spice section and I like to be able to read what the labels are. I go to the canned, I like tin fish. And so I like to be able to read the labels on what the tin fish says. Where does the tin fish come from? How much salt and oil and what kind of oil do they use to be able to preserve this particular fish? I love to be able to go to a restaurant and to be, give me the menu that's in Spanish. I don't want the one that's in English because I need to be able to learn how, what the words are and know how to be able to order what I like when I go to a restaurant. And I like to be able to read it in the original language because that shows me how it is that they like to be able to explain their food. What are the ingredients? And sometimes you get restaurants where they tell you what it tastes like. And I enjoy that process. I enjoy that process. Um, and so I'm not afraid of being a beginner again. But one of the things that actually gave me a challenge in becoming a beginner again is that when I decided to learn how to pick up drawing and painting, I had a creative block in my head. This is the beginning of the pandemic, and I was in Vietnam, and we were about to go under um, quarantine. We were doing quarantine for about 6 weeks, and of course, I was living alone. So everything was about to close. So I went to the mall. There was a really small bookstore that had a few art supplies, and so I bought all the wrong art supplies that I needed for watercoloring. I bought the wrong paints, the wrong paint brushes. I bought like construction paper. It was a hot mess. And I took it home, and I was for 6 weeks. I was doing tutorials that I found on YouTube, and I was practicing. And I got all the easy tutorials, and it was a hot mess. Everything that I was making was looking a mess. And there was a point where I got so frustrated that I found myself tearing up because what I was making didn't look exactly like what the person was creating. And that was a thing that I had to be able to work through because I felt like um, I was expecting myself to show up in the same way that I show up as a writer, per se. Um, I know how to be a writer. I know how to write. I know how to be a writer. Um, I don't profess to be um, excellent in all types of writing. However, there have been times where I needed to learn how to write in a different style, and I learned it. I found the tutorials that I needed, um, and I was able to improve myself in a fairly short amount of time. But the reason that I picked up the art supplies or the art habit was because I wanted to learn how to be creative in another way, in a way that I had always wanted to be able to do it. So I did the art, and with time, I saw that I started to do better. I started to do better, and I would even take pictures of what it is that I was creating, and I would post it online. This is over a couple of years. I would post it online to be able to share with people to keep myself accountable to practice. And it wasn't even like I wasn't making it difficult. Like I didn't want it to turn into a strict, hard practice. I wanted it to be light. I wanted to be something that I was using at night before I go to bed as a way to decompress. Um, it was low stakes. I really love um, being able to take the dry watercolors and you take the paintbrush and the water and you add to it, and then you put you put strokes on the paper, and you get to see how light and vivid the colors are. There's something that's so de-stressing for me when I see that, to see the colors sort of bleed into one another, or to be able to draw something, and um, to be able to the excitement of seeing what this particular drawing is going to come out. And it's not even like my stuff is even all that great. I'm not what some would say professional. I do expect there's going to be a point where I would like my writing and my art to be able to coexist with one another. To like maybe I'll create a book cover. But like I would really love to be able to create like the one. There's a book that I'm writing now that's all about how it answers the question of how to get back into writing when you've been away from it for a while. Um, and it's what people call a tiny book, and it's a book that people can sort of take with them on an airplane ride, um, on a short trip somewhere. And it's something that you read and you can look at and sort of get, excited about your personal writing practice. And in that book, I want to be able to include some of my drawings. I have ideas for like journaling prompt cards, and on the front, I wanted to have my artwork on it. To have um, 10 different pieces of art, and to be able to print that on the back of my journaling prompt. So it'll be the art on one side and the journaling prompts on the other. And it'll be like, I don't know, I think 56 cards. I think that there's a certain number of cards that can come in the pack. And it'll have 10 different designs on there. Like that's what I want. So I'm still a beginner. I'm learning how to be able to do, watercolors and drawing, and even with what's it called? Soft pastels, oil pastels, um, acrylics, oil painting. Um, I said soft pastels, oil pastels, um, charcoal drawing. Like I'm using all of those things. I haven't really taken a class with anybody, but do I really need to? I would love to. Like when I go to my new town, I'm going to be able to I want to be able to hire somebody to sort of be a personal teacher, and it could be in a group class. That would be great. But if I can't find that, I want to be able to find somebody find a young lady because the city that I'm going to is a university town, and they have art classes. So if I can find a young lady who who can be my teacher, and once a week we get together and they help me in Spanish. Hopefully we can do it in Spanish, and they can help me with my art once a week for 6 to 10 weeks at a time. I think that would be really awesome, just to be able to help with technique, to improve my technique, because I'm a beginner and I get to pick and choose the type of experience that I want to be able to have with it. And so I've been a beginner where I was doing stuff on my own, and then I can grow into a beginner who's learning all these different techniques with different mediums. And I'm just really excited about that. And, so now I'm able to take what it is that I'm learning as a beginner and to combine that with my work as a writer, which I think elevates both arts. And I'm excited about that. I'm really excited about that. So I'm so glad that I've been able to do this work, that the work of getting rid of the old conditioning, like I talked about in number 3, so that I can be comfortable with being a beginner again. That's number 4. And finally, number 5. Number 5 is, this is important, my capacity for solitude has evolved into sacred independence. And this is not independence like I'm talking about, like I don't need nobody, I can do it by myself. Um, but I'm not afraid of solitude anymore. One thing that I can say with ease now is that I got married. First time I got married, well, I've only been married technically once. When I got married, when I was in Togo, I got married. I think a large part of it was because of loneliness. I was afraid of loneliness, of being alone. That if, I dated a gentleman there for a couple of years, and if I were to leave him there, would I be able to would I be able to go home and be able to find another relationship? And I think I was afraid that I wouldn't. And so I kind of settled for, what it is that this gentleman was offering me, which was the absolute worst thing to do. So he wasn't really offering me much. And then, of course, we stayed married for 8 years. God bless it, but it didn't work. Thank God. I had enough sense to be able to let that relationship go. But because I was still afraid of being lonely, shortly after I got out of that relationship, I jumped into another relationship that was equally as terrible. Equally as terrible. And I stayed there for 5 years. Um, and so being able to move abroad, people ask me, oh, don't you get lonely being by yourself? And while you get being overseas, you get very cognizant of the fact that you are the only one. Um, because I purposely created a space for myself that I wanted to be healing, the loneliness became more of a safe cocoon for me to become the person that you see on this video today, as opposed to the scared person who made decisions based on scarcity, my belief that, nobody would love me. I would never be able to find somebody who would love me. Um, I wasn't good enough for a good man to be able to be interested in marrying me. That sort of ridiculous self-talk that many of us hold on to, but I think we are not willing to admit it because it makes us look We like to be able to walk out into the world as if we know who we are and what it is that we're doing, and we really don't. And not that I know everything either. It's not that I know everything either. I'm just more comfortable with who I am. Once you can strip away a lot of that crap, I really have no reason to perform for anybody anymore because I'm good with who I am by myself. I can look in the mirror and be proud of who I am. I totally love who I am. So into who I am that the person that I am with, if he is not, or even with women friends, if either one of them are not into who I am as a human being, I can't. You can go. It's good. I'm good. I will be okay. I'll be okay. I don't. I'm not in need of your company. I am in need of my company. I need to be good with me, and I want to be able to have friends and eventually a partner who believes the same. So my capacity for solitude evolves. It has evolved into believing that my own personal independence is actually sacred and not something to be pitied, something to find fault in, like something is wrong with you because you're always alone. That's not true at all. I love being alone. I have built um, I have built a level of trust in my own capacity to be able to navigate the planet. Like some of y'all can't even go to the damn movies by yourself without feeling like empty inside. And that's a problem. Like that's a problem. When you cannot go to the movies by yourself, that's a problem. And I don't, especially with women, we get so many messages that saying we always need to have somebody on our arm. There always has to be somebody who gets to validate who we are as human beings. And you've never validated yourself. You've never sat down and bothered to learn who you are and what you like and why and where it is that you want to be. I can get on a plane tomorrow and you can drop me off in anywhere on the planet and I'll figure something out. I'll figure something out because I've done it. I've done it many times over. I have a very high standard for who it is that I spend my time with. That's whether that could be a date, that could be a date with a man, that could be, a meetup with another woman friend, another sister friend. It could be a business connection, and really any other opportunities that I have to meet with other people. And so this video has run rather long. This has been a really great video. I hope that people watch it. If you liked it, let me know. If you didn't like it, you let me know that too. If you agreed or disagreed, or you wanted to hear or see more of, I would love for you to be able to share that in the comments. Like and subscribe to the video. Um, as I said, I'm a writer, and so I have a Substack, which is a writing platform. I have a newsletter called Wealthy, Wise, and Whole, and I write about topics like the one I wrote today, like the one that I chatted it up with you today. Um, you can sign up for the weekly newsletter that I write there, but then there's also a portion for paid subscribers if you're into journaling, because I like it's not just me, trying to put my opinions on you, but I also use it as an opportunity for you to be able to write about your own personal evolution. Where are you going with your life? Particularly for women in midlife, I think this is really important to be able to learn who you are, who you have been, um, what parts of yourself are you letting go, um, and like what are you blossoming into now in this second half of your life, whether in your 40s, 50s, 60s, or older. Because that's always an evolving discussion. That's something that's always changing. The way that I would have answered this question today, the question is of the things that I didn't expect to learn after leaving the States. Um, if had I answered that question 2 years ago, I might have given you a completely different set of answers. But journaling is part of my process of being able to keep track of what it is that I'm thinking. And I think that more women should do that. I don't do, cutesy journaling prompts about colors, and I don't really get that. It's not really me. But if you like these kinds of discussions, so you can sort of dig into your own personal wisdom, and keep a recording of that for yourself. I invite you to my Substack at Wealthy, Wise, and Whole. You can find it at halana.substack.com. The link is in the comment box and in the description box. So thanks for hanging out with me. I will see you tomorrow. Peace.